Al is a master sales expert, and we're going to let him tell us what he's learned in all these years of doing that role. So, Al, I'm just going to let you roll with it.
Cool. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I'm honored to be invited to your group. And I appreciate what y'all do as entrepreneurs, CEOs, running companies. It's a good role, and it's one that's probably um, not very well trained, I think, in terms of at least driving revenue. Um, but anyway, what I thought we would do today is fairly free form. I've got one slide that I can use as a primer, but I really want to hear from you as far as what questions do you have? What do you want to talk about in terms of driving revenue, gross profit margins, getting new business, keeping and growing existing business, those kinds of things. Doc, we still good until 12:30? Is that
Yeah.
what we're okay? All right. So we got another 26 minutes. Good. Okay. All right. So how many of y'all so all of y'all run a company, right? Is that what I understand? Okay. Okay. How many of y'all are the main rainmaker for the company? Okay. So all right, Charles Williams, you've got somebody else. Okay.
hmm
All
Yeah,
right.
we have a process. You do your thing, I'll let you know.
Yes, sir. I'll do that. That'd be great. Okay. All right, but all right. Well, we'll just leave it at that for now. Let me share my screen so y'all can see this primer. This is what I call non-negotiables.
Hold on, Charlie is probably not a. I think you say tell us earlier, Charlie, that you're not the main rainmaker as opposed to Charles.
Well, Charlie runs three different, well, he's got a
Yes,
coaching business. Oh, I
so
thought,
I have two businesses that are mine, and then I work for a third business separately. So yes, one business I am the CEO founder of.
But
Okay.
he was asking which of us are the primary producer of business in the group, and I didn't know if that was you or if it was someone else in yours.
It is, yes.
Okay, so it is just Charles.
Yeah. Well, I just want to know because whether you are the rainmaker or you know very involved in the sales process or managing rainmakers, I just want to know what angle to come at some of these things from. So we'll we'll come at from all three of those angles. How's that? That work? Okay.
there you go.
All right. Well, these are the kinds of things that I have over the years. This is my 49th year selling. About half of that, the second half of that has been spent as a sales trainer and coach. And the first half of that, I was a corporate sales guy and sales manager. Um, so, so I've been around the block a bit, I guess. And um, some of the things that have come to mind. So I got these six things on the screen here. Take a look at those and just tell me which one you want to start with.
Number two.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Okay, got two votes for number two.
Yeah, number two, and we can start with number two, number six.
Oh yeah, I love number six. Okay, two and six. Any others catch your attention?
I take it that there's conversation about three in discussing number two. Is that right, or is that a bad assumption?
No, that's a great assumption, Max. Yeah, Mac, because yeah, it does. It kind of grows out of three grows out of two. It does. Jennifer, Scott.
I- Five is jumping out at me, although I'm guessing other people have a more developed um, way of doing this. I've stopped saying it, but I previously have said that I've had a successful business for 25 years in spite of myself. Um, so a system for selling and being more intentional about that would certainly benefit me.
That would be a good one too. All right, good. So 2, 3, 5, and 6. If we have time, we can look at 1 and 4 as well. Let's start with 2. Buyers. By the way, when we say number one, really just really quick on number 1, salespeople are professionals. I have found, and maybe you have too, if you've tried to hire salespeople, that there are 2 kinds of salespeople out there. There's the kind that chosen it as a profession, a true profession that they work at, and they build their skills and processes. And those are the kinds of folks I want to work with. There's the other kind that take a sales job just because it's a step towards something else, right? It's a filler until they get to whatever else is their goal in life. Nothing wrong with that, but I would not call that group sales professionals. And so for that group, 2 through 6 really don't mean a whole lot to me. Okay, I'll just say that about it. But people who take the profession seriously, those are the folks I want to work with. And what is a professional? What does that mean? Well, professionals typically, have ongoing education. They're lifelong learners. They go for certifications and they build their craft. It's a priority for them to be at their best. Those kinds of things are what I would call professionals. All right, so buyers must qualify for the seller's time. This is really a mindset thing. Okay, at Sandler, we have what we call the success triangle, which are, got triangle 3 points, right? Which would be technique is one of those points, so on the triangle, which most people can consider technique as that's the biggest thing in sales training. For us, it's an equilateral triangle. Technique is no more important than the other 2 points in the triangle, which are behavior. Think of that as like activities, the things you do every day to bring in new business and keep and grow existing business. We'll call that behavior. And then the third point is your mindset. It's the mindset we have, which really I can make the case that's the most important of the 3. And so the mindset that we want to zero in on for number 2 is that your best resource is your time. And we have to be good stewards of all of our resources in business. And so we need to be spending our time with people who are in our ideal client profile. We call it ICP for short. And I could ask, do you know what your ICP is? What does your ideal client profile look? Like is it certain vertical market, a certain size? Is it B2B, B2C? So all the things go into your ideal client profile. But in sales, we want to make sure that we are spending our time with decision makers in our ideal client profile. Now, that's another thing we can unpack too, because you might get invited in, connect on LinkedIn to someone who's not a decision maker, they're a recommender. But we're not going to be good stewards of our time if we don't make sure that we are trying very hard to get to the ultimate decision makers in all of our opportunities. That's how you win more deals. And so they must qualify. By that means, they have to be a decision maker. They have to be in our ideal client profile or very close to it. And they have to really have a reason to talk, right? We call that pain. They have to have a compelling reason to do business with us, and ideally in the short term, not sometime in 2028. And they must be willing and able to invest, willing and able to invest money, time, and effort. And they have to have a decision-making process that we understand completely and are willing to go through. So that's 5 criteria right there. Decision maker in our ideal client profile, have pain that we can fix, be willing and able to invest in the short term, and have a decision-making process that we understand completely and are willing to go through. That's 5 criteria that people that I spend my time with have to qualify with. Right? Otherwise, you're spinning your wheels. Now, having said that, we don't live in an exact world, right? Sales is an inexact science. You're going to have to spend time with people who don't qualify in all five areas in order to find the people that do. Right? We call that prospecting. Questions or comments on that?
I guess for me, the one thing that has helped us out internally is and I can't remember if this was from Terry or not, but we identify if the client is or if their need is a vitamin or a Tylenol, right? And so we try to go after or spend more of our time with clients that they need a Tylenol because they have pain, they have a problem today, they have budget and they need to fix something versus this is pie in the sky and they just want a vitamin to in case something happens. Those usually don't pan out into opportunity for us. So that having that little concept has helped us out internally because they always tell me I chase butterflies. So to qualify opportunity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sure does. You know, I'm a butterfly. That's interesting. But and the other thing too, as you mentioned, they have a budget. Well, I would consider qualifying under the investment category, being someone who can go get a budget, right? But you have to really kind of dig in on that one. I remember a conversation I had over the phone with a recommender. And I said, how you go about getting funding for this? And she said, I go ask my boss. And I said, okay, well, why don't the three of us get on a call together? She said, no, 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 you got to deal with me only, and I got to go get the money from my boss. I said, okay, how do we do that? She said, we hang up, I go talk to her, I call you back. I said, are you really going to do that? You really going to call me back? Yes or no, right? It's okay for a no. But either way, would you call me back, let's say in the next 15, 20 minutes? He said, absolutely, I will. She says, I'm going to go fight for the funding. That was her exact phrase. I'm going to go fight for the funding. She called me back within 20 minutes. She said, I got it. And I said, okay, great. I said, first of all, you're a great negotiator. I don't want to play poker with you. Secondly, congratulations that you did that. Then we got on a call with the main decision maker who had already approved the budget, and I won their business. But you have to do that. You have to dig in. You have to ask them questions.
Hey,
Yeah.
Al,
Yeah.
before I forget, in my sales training, so I'm pursuing consulting engagements, right?
Yeah.
And very often they're pretty big ticket items. Um, and I was always coached that I should ask people what their budget is for the engagement. And I've never gotten comfortable with that because it seems inevitable, almost, 9 times out of 10, even if I approach that in the most diplomatic way I can, people will accuse me of trying to get them to negotiate against themselves. Like, what, dude? I'm not going to write you a blank check. Da, 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 da. I mean, good idea or bad idea to bring up the because I think in the Sandler, I remember reading something that you want to talk about money fairly early in the process to see if you're wasting your time or not. So what are your thoughts on that, please?
Yeah. That's exactly right. That goes to number two, right? They must qualify for my time. So they've either got to have a budget or they can go get one, and it has to be within the ballpark, right, of what our products or services might cost. So you have to have that conversation fairly early on. But it's okay if they're not comfortable, right? We hear it all the time. Well, our policy is not to share, which is probably BS, but it's okay. Or I'm not comfortable sharing, or I have a budget, yes, but it's none of your business as to how much it is. Or, we're going to hear pushback like that. And as soon as you hear pushback, you've got to say this. You got to say, Terry, that's not unusual. It's not unusual. That's just fine. How about we do it this way? How about I tell you kind of ballpark, maybe a range based on what we talked about so far, how much I think your investment might be? Again, ballpark, this is not a quote. And then you tell me whether or not that's doable. Does that sound fair? And then I would give you a range, right? I would do that. I would give you we call that bracketing, right? I give you a low range and a high, high or low number, high number. And I would say, it's somewhere in there doable. And people are typically very comfortable with that scenario.
That's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. But you got to start with not unusual, right? Because they just went not what we call not okay. Hey, I don't want to share my budget with you. Well, there's an edge to that, right? We call that going not okay. So your first job is to get them settled down, get the edge off and say, you know what, Terry, that's not unusual. We hear that all the time. How about we do it this way instead? So I'm going to give you an alternative way of going about it. I still have my system, and that's the number five, or I'm going to number five now already, Jennifer. But I have my system I'm going to stick to. I'm not going to short circuit my system. But the number one part of my system is building great rapport with people. Because when you build great rapport with people, the rest of it's much easier to execute. It is. So these are great questions, but I feel that the clock moving. Is it more important to cover all these bases, or is it more important to zero in on something?
I'm cool
Well,
on you zeroing in on what you think is, in other words, you qualify for our time.
Okay, got it. Well, number three, some buyers won't qualify. The fact is that, I just gave you five criteria. That's a lot, right? And of course they're fuzzy edged, right? So you can, like we talked about with Charles, with do they have to have funding already now, or can they go get it? There's fuzzy edges on these five things, but so you got to come to realize that some people just might not qualify. They just might not. And to have access to you and your time and your resources. Now, people say, well, what if I let a good one get away? Well, that's going to happen, but it's far outweighed by spending time on things that are going to get away anyway. We're not going to win anyway. It's just like playing poker, right? You can see your hand, you can't see everybody else's. You have to decide, am I going to put more money in that pot or not? Knowing that in the end, only one person is going to win the pot. So do I want to be that person that keeps throwing resources and money at something only to not win anyway? Heck no, right? I either want to win or fold early.
Right.
So if you do a pre-qual on those five areas I mentioned, and then make a decision, make an objective decision. And you just might have to say, Terry, I'm going to respectfully decline to submit a bid. Now, that's an important thing right there, right? Because Terry he might say, well, Al, it's up to you. You don't want to bid, you don't want to bid. Like he just told me I just won because I didn't waste a lot of my time. I wasn't going to win anyway. Or he might react this way. He might say, wait a minute now, why don't you want to bid? In which case I might say, well, Terry, I really do appreciate you asking, but I don't really see a way for me to win your business. How do you see me winning your business? Now, when he answers that question, he just might give me the roadmap to win his business, and I might decide to take it. Or I might decide I'm just not going to pursue it. But at least I get to make an objective decision. But the key point is there to say, I respectfully decline to submit a bid. It's a very cool professional way of saying that to somebody, because maybe he could come back 2 years from now with another initiative that I might want to bid on. Right. So we don't want to put an X on anybody, right? And we certainly don't want to ghost anybody.
Right.
Right. You get an RFP or RFQ, you do not ghost anybody ever, ever. Respectfully decline to submit a bid. So that's number three. Okay. We touched on five already. We have a bunch of one-liners in our training designed to make a point, not designed to be taken literally, by the way. And the one-liner that applies to number five is you can have your own system or you can default to the prospect system. Your choice. Now, the first 22 years of my sales career, I defaulted to the prospect system, also known as the quote and hope methodology. All right, and I was mediocre at best. Problem was I was making money. Why is that a problem? Is because I had a great territory. The phone was ringing, so I was taking orders. I thought that meant I was good at sales. So not only was I mediocre, but I was blind to it. It was a double whammy, right? Until I came across Sandler in 1999 changed my life. And I realized that I was, here I'm in my early 40s at the time. I realized that I was an order taker at best, and my balloon burst. And now I had a decision to make. I could either keep on going because I was making money and not change, or I could change, become a true professional, and have my own system for selling. Which this thing just say things like, here's the process we use. Like when a prospect says, Al, we want you, we got this issue or this project or this initiative or whatever, we would like your input. And I would say, sure, here's the process we use to find out if it's a good fit for you and me. And then I lay the process out for them and they can decide, do they want to follow my process or not? And if the answer is not, I just might respectfully decline to submit a bid. Okay. Because the whole quote and hope thing is bad. And that goes back to mindset again, goes back to number two. If your mindset is, hey, I would love to get on your calendar, well, that's nonsense. That's begging, right? I mean, instead, our mindset should be, this person's doggone lucky to have me standing in their office because they need what I sell. They just don't know it yet. That's a much better, stronger mindset. I tell all my clients that if they were to walk into the president of Coca-Cola's office right now, down there in Midtown, whatever floor it is, corner office, walk into that person's office and their knees not shake. That's what you got to have, right? She's doggone lucky I'm here. She just doesn't know it yet. As opposed to, I was hoping to get 10 minutes of your time, which is awful, right? Which is what a lot of salespeople do. And then there's no begging, right? So we have to have our system that we follow. And yes, it means we're going to walk away from some business we maybe could have had if we pursued it, but we're also going to save an awful lot of time and energy, resource from not going after business that we would not have won, and maybe even should not have gone after, because even if we win it, it's not good business. Instead, we can spend time going after people that qualify under those 5 criteria. We good?
Good stuff.
Yeah, I have a question just about the when you talk about the sales process, and it may not be an intelligent one, but um do you include like lead generation into this process, or is that something different? This is after a certain point and a salesperson is in front of a potential client. Does that question make sense?
I'm not sure, because I think of lead generation as getting to that point where the salesperson's talking to the prospect.
Okay.
I mean, lead generation is typically a marketing term, right? People do marketing usually for one of 2 reasons, either to build their brand or to generate inbound leads. That's lead generation, right? In sales, we have prospecting. So when lead generation blends into prospecting, that's when we typically take over and with our clients and help them do better at prospecting. Because handling
Okay.
inbound leads, did you know that there are over 60% of inbound leads are never followed up on?
I can believe that.
It just blows my mind when I think of that stat.
Yeah.
Who are we hiring for sales if that's happening? That's ridiculous, right? So you get an inbound lead, man, you should be all over that thing, even if only just to disqualify them, right? Go for the no.
Well,
Um,
Al, if you've got the flexibility and we can run a few minutes over, I hate to cut you short, but I mean that it's up to you. I think the guys will probably want to stick around.
well, my next thing is at 1. I'll need maybe 10 minutes of time of buffer time, so I can go till 10 of.
Well,
But
let's see if and I did want to make a comment too that the way I think about sales that helped me get over that. There was a point when I had 5 cars and 3 kids in college, and then the recession hit. So I considered a whole lot of begging, and but I like helping people, and so to me, the way I think about sales is if somebody has come to me that I could potentially help with my service, and I don't do a good job of talking them into taking advantage of it, what a lost opportunity that is for both of us.
yeah, yeah. Well, just it's simple. Little phrases like, "Hey, why don't we hop on a call?" figure out if there's any reason to keep talking after that. That, as opposed to, can I get 10 minutes of your time? The difference is huge, huge, not only in how it sounds to the prospect, but also in how it sounds in my own head for myself to feel confident. Right. So just little things like that are huge. Now, back to Charles's question, I did not really understand what you were talking about when you said lead generation. Can you give me a
Yeah,
better?
well, I guess if my way of looking at like the sales process, like for us, like with government, it always starts with the relationship side, right?
Yeah.
And so when I answered your question earlier that I'm not like the sales guy, we have a process, right? We work together. So I'm usually the front guy to build the relationships first, right?
Yeah.
And then, I throw it over the fence or we do something
Yeah.
collective together where we talk about,
Yeah.
I've identified a problem and he does what he does and closes the deal.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it from that lens. I don't know if that made it clear or not,
Yeah.
but I
Well, I would
see.
call that prospecting. I would label that
Yeah.
prospecting. Yeah.
Okay,
Or
gotcha.
you could call it business development, right? Companies have
Yeah.
people that they hire that have that title, business development, um, which is, they're out there kissing babies and shaking hands and networking and going to trade shows and having all kinds of conversations just to see where there might be some initiatives. And then most of the time, if they have that title of business development, when someone says, "Hey, let's talk," they throw that over their shoulder to a salesperson. Not always, but that's what we see commonly in business is that kind of thing. Now, I don't really care about the titles, I care about the roles and the skills and processes that go with that role, right? So what you're describing to me sounds like the business development role. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Absolutely right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
What are your thoughts on the elevator sales pitch, 60 seconds or less?
Yeah, well, I think it's critical that we all have one. And we call it the 30-second commercial at Sandler because I don't want to use the word pitch. I love baseball. That's where pitching belongs. But in sales, the connotation of pitch is that you're going to do all the talking, trying to convince me of something, which I just don't want that to have to be in the mind, the mindset of my clients. So a 30-second commercial, and it may not be 30, right? It might be 30 if you're in an elevator going 3 floors down. It might be, 5 minutes if you're at the neighborhood, work party with the barbecues fired up and someone's going to, cook hamburgers medium and I'm standing next to my neighbor and I say, "What do you do?" They tell me and they say, "What do you do?" I mean, how much time do I have? Well, how long does it take to cook a hamburger medium, right? So I mean, right, and one of my clients got her best client ever while pumping gas. Right. She just started up a conversation with the person on the other side of the gas island based on a bumper sticker or something that she saw, and started a conversation that led to a meeting that led to an opportunity, a sales opportunity that led to her best client ever. Right. All because when you're asked, "What do you do?" you have an answer that's not a pitch because we don't use second person. You, right? You really need what we've got. Everybody has the problems you got, so you need to talk to me. We don't use second person at all the way we teach it. We use third party. For example, here's mine. My clients, they typically sought me out because they were worried about where the revenue is going to come from next quarter, because their pipeline was way too thin, or others needed us because they had a decent pipeline, but they weren't closing enough of those opportunities, and it was driving them crazy, frustrated with that, things like that. I don't know. Anything that I've said there, Mac, touch a nerve? Any reason why we should talk? So that's the kind of thing that we teach our clients to do.
You
So,
almost you almost got me responding to you. You were so effective.
well, I can show you a piece of paper I got here next to my desk that's got 26 of what we call pain statements. I just gave you two of them, right? Worried about where the revenue is going to come from and frustrated with not closing enough deals. But you ought to be able to just take whoever you're talking to and figure out what pain statements to use. Like if you're at that neighborhood barbecue watching somebody cook hamburgers, you should be the first to say, "What do you do?" So that when they ask back, "What do you do?" then you've got a context to decide what pain statements to use. For example, I came out of a networking luncheon, and as soon as it ended, I had to go, or I had to be somewhere else. So we're on the second floor, third floor, we're on the third floor of this building. And so I headed for the elevators, but I was too far away. By the time I got anywhere near the elevators, the bank was, the lobby area was full of people waiting for the elevators. So I pivoted and went to the stairs. Well, another guy had that same idea. So we're walking almost side by side down two flights of stairs. And I said, "What do you do?" He said, "Well, I'm a commercial banker." I said, "Oh, in my experience, commercial bankers want to be bankers, and then they find out they got to go get clients. And that's a different story." He laughed. All right, so one pain statement that I made up on the fly while walking down flights of stairs. He laughed and he said, "Boy, did you nail me and my team right there." By the time we got to our cars, he had handed me his card and asked me to call him the next day. That turned into a meeting, which turned into a client that I had for 3 years. All right, because I said, "What do you do?" on a stairwell. Right. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, right? Where it's not a pitch, it's describing what you do to take pain from other people's lives and seeing if any of that touches a nerve with the folks you're talking to. All right, you want to tackle number six?
Al, just quick comment. I do individual assessments like for hiring CEOs and so forth.
Yeah,
And one of the things I always do is a sales role play. And the key thing that I'm looking for is for them to ask enough questions to uncover the real need. And you'd be amazed, I'll set up a scenario in a retail shop. You'd be amazed at how many, because I'll play the customer and I'll say, can I help you? And I'll say, I'm just looking. And they'll say, okay, well, just call me if you need anything. And they walk away. It's amazing. I had one lady though, she asked questions. I mean, really, man, uh, she was ready to buy the whole store. But, by the time I asked enough questions to see what was going on, or she asking it. So that's number five. I mean, number four. I just want to say that if what is the problem or the pain that you're really trying to solve, and it changes the conversation completely.
yeah. There's a simple map for question asking. What, why, impact? What's going on? Why is it happening? And what is the impact on your company and the impact on you personally? And so your questions, it doesn't matter. We have an official pain funnel questioning strategy, but I've never had a sales call ever that used just those questions in just that order, right? So, but if we follow the map, what's going on? Why is it happening? And what is the impact on your company, impact on you personally? You're going to get great conversations. I tell people, I ask them, how long do you set aside? If you're going to make an appointment with someone, a prospect, to do discovery, how long do you make it for? People say, 30 minutes, 45, maybe an hour. And I always recommend double it. Double it. They say, I can't double it. Nobody wants to meet for 2 hours. Well, have you asked? Well, no. Look, handling pushback is part of sales. So when I make a discovery appointment, I make it for 90 minutes. And I've had people say, 90 minutes? I don't give anybody, I wouldn't give the President of the United States 90 minutes. And I say, fair. How big of a priority is this issue you're trying to fix? And then after I get that answer, I say, okay, well, 90 minutes. Now I can split that up into two 45s if you want. I would rather not. But let's do 90 minutes. And then, again, I've never had anybody say, okay, let's just not do it. I mean, if they're, which the equivalent of saying, hey, I don't give anybody 90 minutes is the equivalent of saying, I'm just looking, right? That's pretty close. Right. But well, there's a reason why they showed up. What's that reason? What is that reason? And why does that reason exist? And how is it affecting your life? Here's an example that one of my clients had. She sells standard parts for manufacturers. So she's standing in the plant talking to the plant manager. And the plant manager says, line number 3 keeps going down. And she says, well, why do you suppose that is? And he said, I don't know. Let's go take a look. So they go together and look at the line, and she sees right away that those machines are using non-standard parts. Well, right there, she could say, well, I sell standard parts you can buy from me. And he would say, okay, give me a quote. And he'll probably go out and get one or two more quotes and pick who.
The cheapest one.
Yeah, low price wins. That's commodity city. But she's my client. She knows not to do that, right? So instead of saying, hey, I can quote you standard parts, she says, instead, she says, well, how much does it keep going down? And how much is it costing you? And that question, by the way, the guy was like, "Oh my goodness, you got it. We have to do overtime on lines 1 and 2. We have to buy inventory from our competitors. We have to run extra deliveries at night, and we have to and we lost some clients." So she says, "How much is that costing you?" She gets out her calculator on her phone, starts adding up stuff in those categories that he mentioned. It came out to like $3 million. She said, that can't be right. That's way too much. She said, oh no, it's probably at least $3 million. So that's impact on the company. It's a very important thing. All of a sudden now the price of her standard parts doesn't really matter that much, but she still wasn't done because we haven't covered impact on him personally. So she says to him, well, how's this affecting you personally? And that's when he paused. He kind of looked down. Then he looked back up. He said, I haven't been home in time to tuck my kids into bed for 2 weeks. And she just let that sit for a minute. You know what? He placed an order right there and then, didn't even get two more bids. Why? Because he wants to go tuck his kids into bed, not because she sells standard parts and that her price is better than the next guy's or not. All right, questions are huge, but they have to follow what's going on, why is it happening, what's the impact on your company, what's the impact on you personally. I say company, Charles, you're calling on government, so impact on your organization, right? Or your
Same
agency.
thing. Same
Yeah,
thing. Same
okay.
thing.
All right. All right, we haven't covered 6 yet. Although, you know what? We probably actually have. Anybody know why?
Right.
Now, I asked first, Charles.
You see, I told you Charles was hard to get along with. You see how he is?
Charles, here's
Because
the process we use, man. I ask the questions, you give the answers.
I guess because we've already said about so-called determine when in the process. If we feel like it doesn't satisfy those 5 things that you talked about earlier,
Yeah.
I guess you move on.
Yeah. You move on, but that's a key thing because moving on isn't actually ending. Right? It might be ending talk about this particular initiative, but relationships go on, right?
Mhm.
Relationships go on. So most salespeople would say something like, hey, how about I follow up with you next quarter or next month or next year or next budget period, whatever they say, right? Which means absolutely nothing. All prospects say, sure, yeah, go ahead and do that, knowing full well that if nothing's going on when they call back or email back, they're just going to ghost them. So why we even do stuff like that? In fact, I don't even want my clients to use the words follow up, check in, touch base, circle back. Get rid of those phrases. Now, hear me out, okay? I'm not saying that you shouldn't follow up. That is a valid sales effort. Just don't use those words. Why? Because they mean nothing to the prospect. They don't mean anything. So it might sound like this. Hey, Terry, I'm going to respectfully decline to submit a bid. Terry says, hey, well, up to you. If you don't want to, that's your decision. I say, yes, yeah, it is. I'm sorry. I just don't think it makes sense for us to pursue your business in this particular case. And Terry's about ready to hang up, right? He's about ready to end the process. I'm not gonna let it end there. I'm gonna say, Terry, why don't we do this? By the way, that's a key phrase. Why don't we do this? Or let me make a suggestion. Or let's do this. Those are examples of what we call embedded commands. What they replace is, hey, can I call you next month? right? All those begging phrases that weak salespeople use. So instead, I'll say, Terry, why don't we do this? Let's get our calendars out. Let's look at, what do you think? I don't know, August, September, and we'll get together and you can tell me that you still don't have anything for me, or you can tell me you got something new that you want to run by me. Either way, let's do that. You good with that? By the way, try this when you're at a networking event or a trade show, and you know how those things go, right? They say, "Hey, give me a call next week," which means they're going to ghost you probably, um, but because it means nothing. But if they say to you, "Let's get together next week," or "Give me a call next week," if you reach in and pull out your phone like that, you know what they do?
Do the same.
They do. You remember Pavlov's dogs? Bell rings, they salivate. You pull your phone out, they can't resist it. Their right hand goes right in there. It does. And it comes out because their calendar's on there. So I pull mine out. I say, okay, next week, probably not Monday, right? Because you're going to be, tackling all those messages from the weekend. How about instead we do Tuesday? What's Tuesday morning look like for you? By that time, he's already got his calendar open on his phone. He's looking at it. And I can send a calendar invitation to him right there while we're standing there. It's awesome, right? Because these things, right? These boxes we all carry around with us, these things, these boxes, right? These things are sales prevention tools, unless we use them right, right? So use them right, and we can help
What do you mean they're sales prevention tools?
because people use them to screen your emails and your calls, and they decide if they're going to take the call or not. And studies show that most people do not take a call from folks that they don't know who they are, or they do know but don't care to talk to them. And they don't even listen to the voicemail if you leave one. And I don't even know what the stats are anymore on emails. Email is the biggest sales prevention tool ever. Salespeople they default important conversations to email. Well, you just talked about questions, right? Number 4. How are you supposed to ask questions? I had a client that, if she first started working with me, she sent an email to a prospect asking 3 questions. 2 weeks later, she gets an answer to one of the 3 questions only. She's telling me about this, and I said, "Why didn't you pick up the phone?" And she said, "Oh, didn't think of that." What?
Al, a lot of folks these days prefer text to calling or emailing. I have yet to get on that train. What are your thoughts about using texting and as
I
part of
love
this?
it. I love it. I love it because if you remember back in COVID, when COVID hit, all of us were sitting in front of our screens with our phones next to us, and we had meetings back to back to back to back. So today we don't have that COVID thing anymore, but we still sit in front of screens with these boxes next to us. And if we text someone and just say, "Hey, why don't we hop on a call? I've got something to run by you." That typically works. It does. Now, I wouldn't ask the question I want to run by them on the text. I use the text to lead to a conversation. Sales is done person to person, live conversations. That's how it's done.
That's helpful. Thanks.
You're welcome. I hope that never changes, by the way, because if it does, and well, it already has in many cases. I mean, there are like 1/3 of sales jobs today that there were 10 years ago. Why? Because of technology, because of e-commerce websites, because of AI. I mean, people who don't have to have an in-depth problem-solving conversation are replaced by bots today, and that's only going to get worse. So you want to be relevant, a relevant problem solver, a relevant pain solver, have live conversations with decision makers. That's how you do it. I'm done. What do you
Awesome.
got? One last question, anybody?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Al. Now, I assume you don't want people calling you because you don't need any more business. Is that correct?
No, it's not true. I am part of a team. I sold my business to another team, and I'm retiring in 3 months, true, but my team still wants business. So, yes, call me, email me, text me.
Okay, have you got a screen? Well, I'll send the people your info,
Okay. Yeah.
so make
Yeah.
sure they know how to get in touch
I
with
can put it in
you.
the chat box. How's that?
Cool.
Yeah. Righty then. There you go.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. And it sure has been fun for me. I've had more sales training than the law allows, and I still learned a lot today. So thank
I'm
you.
glad. I'm glad. I appreciate it. Yeah. Y'all had great questions, terrific questions. So I appreciate that.
That's a fine
Bye,
group.
everybody.
Take care, man. Bye.
You.
Bye.